Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
Welcome to Synchronicity. My guest this week is Duncan Trussell. This is Duncan's third time on the show. I am honored and privileged and grateful to call Duncan a friend. We've connected, 5 or 6 years ago through a mutual admiration of all things kind of unseen. He comes at a lot of this stuff from approaches I don't know, so you'll hear him using the words like magical and stuff like this, and he brings up Crowley a lot. I have a very cursory understanding of most of that stuff, but do understand occult practices and magical practices through different cultures and veins. And I think what's cool about all this stuff is if you really start to investigate any one avenue of kind of reality or unreality, you start to realize they're all talking about kind of the same thing, just in a different way. And they've imagined these different kind of ways to interact with what sustains what we know out in this world. So that's what this episode is really about. I have been, and you will hear more of, my affinity for 20th century thinker, mystic, philosopher guy, born in Barbados, Neville Goddard. And yeah, he's got some interesting ideas about imagination and how it creates reality. And I've been having a good time bouncing this idea, which, just to be clear, I kind of fully believe at this point, off people I admire and respect and know, who they think about this shit. And it's interesting to see people's reactions. And this one, Duncan does the most responsible and kind of the best thing you can do. And I'm sure this comes from experience on his end. When you start talking about things like imagination creates reality, the I am in your head is God, you are God, all of these things, there can be a lot of different reactions to that. And one of those reactions can be to really get untethered from our reality. And I say that as someone who that has happened to in the past. So being very acutely tuned into that potentiality is important. And Duncan very deftly deals with that right off the bat, which I think is very important. And from there, we kind of just bounce back ideas about if this is true, what does that mean? What are some of the different perspectives from different cultures and religions that may provide some insight into this idea? And we deal with like real shit, like existential dread and loneliness and not knowing and, confronting desires and what you should want and shouldn't want and what's okay to want and all of these different things that I think everyone thinks about all the time. And obviously what comes out of this is having some type of clarity and knowledge about what you want and being able to focus on that in a disciplined way. That's a theme that comes up definitely in this episode is discipline, and also bouncing that off this idea that we can use our imagination to change things. So imaginal activities and imagining in general can be its own form of discipline. So anyway, we'll get into all of that. You'll hear much more about imagination in the coming weeks. Going to speak with Mitch Horowitz tomorrow in the city. Wrote the book The Miracle Club, which got me tuned into Neville Goddard, and who introduced me to Mitch Horowitz? Duncan. So the circle is complete. That's all I gotta say about this. You know who Duncan is, right? Popular comedian, podcaster, essentially was the impetus and genesis of MindPod Network and Synchronicity, all of these wonderful things that exist now because of this is wonderful human imagination of Duncan Trussell. So enjoy this episode. Let's do 2 quick thank yous to people and organizations who support this show. Four Sigmatic.com/sync, SYNC. Go there. I'm sure you've heard of it, but on the off chance you're hearing this for the first time or you've heard of it and you've never taken action, go to foursigmatic.com/sync. Get 15% off your first order of mushroom coffee, mushroom tea, mushroom elixir, pretty much anything mushroom, they got it. Go check it out. This stuff is good for you. It makes you feel good. I've used it. They're sweet, sweet fellows. They're doing good stuff. Support good people. So that's Thank you, number one. Thank you, number two, goes to the people at Ned. Listen to the episode before this one to get a sense of who these guys are. It's basically, my dad tried to give me shit. Listen to this. My dad was like, you're just doing a big sponsored ad for Ned. It's not, what should they pay? Basically all cynical. Like I did this in some secret shady deal with Ned. They're fucking cool people. I wanted to have them on. I've had other sponsors of this show. I haven't invited them on. I just really vibe with these people. I really appreciate what they're doing. I don't trust CBD companies as a general rule. I trust these guys because I've spoken to them, got a sense of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who they are. So I take their CBD. It's awesome. I take their full spectrum CBD oil pretty much every day without fail. And it's awesome. And I don't want to tout all the medical and amazing benefits. Just do a little Googling. It's pretty cool. But if you believe in the karmic transfer of intention into things that end up in your hands, it's hard to do better than Ned. So big thanks to those guys. You can go to helloned.com, use the code SYNC at checkout, another 15% out. Maybe I should work out some special deals with people, some custom percent so I stand out. I don't know. Anyway, thank you to you guys. Rate and review this podcast if you like it. Go check out Duncan's podcast if you haven't heard of it. If that's possible, you've heard of this and haven't heard of that, that's crazy. How is that possible? I don't know. Anyway, let's also all imagine Duncan getting this Moog 1, right? Can we do that? It's a synthesizer. Go look it up. Imagine Duncan getting it and being so happy. That'd be cool. Anyway, without further ado, here is Duncan Trussell. Yeah, man. How's everything else going? Now we can officially start.
Great. Beautiful. Yeah, things are great. Things are going really well over on this side of the world.
So I wanted to run a few things by you because you triggered a pretty cool sequence of events for me in the past 2.5, 3 weeks, because I don't even remember the tweet, but you tagged me with Mitch Horowitz. And I'm going to interview him on Thursday. I'm going to the city to his place and going to say what's up. So I was like, all right, I'm interviewing this guy now. I reached out to him, seemed cool. And he wrote the book, The Miracle Club, which I was reading through. And in it, I was blown away by this idea, and specifically this dude, Neville Goddard, who he mentions in the book. And specifically because he has this idea that the I am in the Bible is our human imagination, and that is literally God, and that creates everything around us. Not only that, it's a principle and like an operative power that we can use and like empirically test to see if we can shape external reality, which has always been kind of like an interest of mine, because I don't know if you know this, the reason this podcast is Synchronicity is because back in 2003 and 4, I had like brought on by a regular dose of LSD, like a 3-month experience of nonstop synchronicity, no intermittent points, sometimes through the dreaming state, overwhelming, totally blew out my fucking consciousness, had to like totally recuperate and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But this dude, Neville Goddard, talks about a lot of this shit that I went through and that I experienced. I'm like, oh my God, I've never heard anyone talk about this. And I'm curious, knowing that you kind of like, you're also passionately interested in kind of like how reality is, like, and what this is, and you know, we speculate and all this stuff, like, how does that idea of our imagination being the biblical God that everyone reads about, like, how does that mesh with your idea of reality as we know it?
Oh, that's a cool question. Well, it does remind me of, I wish I could remember where I read this because I didn't verify how true it is. Maybe it was just speculation, but it was something to do with the evolution of the neocortex in relation to our relationship with our own thoughts and
Right.
our imagination. So, and our subconscious, and that with the development of the neocortex, a kind of chasm began to open up between the imagination mind and what we would call the like rational thinking mind.
Right.
But prior to that, what maybe now we would call like a mental breakdown, hearing voices, thinking you're communicating with God, was actually a kind of normal occurrence in the sense that our imaginations were not really so separated as they are from our thinking mind or from
Right.
our experience of reality. So people were even more of a kind of sleepwalking state in the sense that they were not just dealing with what we're all dealing with now, which is our recurring thoughts,
Right.
but also on top of that, the shit that is now reserved for the 6 or hopefully 8 hours you get when the sun goes down was actually happening when the sun goes up. So this, just, I mean, imagine that shit, how distracting that would be. So navigating in this world with that extra overlay wouldn't have been as conducive to survival, probably, in the sense that we need more of a grounded connection with what is happening, at least in the material world, so that we can deal with that instead of having to simultaneously fight off bears and
be in an imaginative world. Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I have found this idea of kind of grounding to be most of what I've been doing kind of unconsciously with no like conscious direction of the past 15 years or so, getting married, living the life of a household or, having kids, like this thing that really tethers you to the world, not in a kind of obligation sense, but it just like reminds you of the responsibility of being a human being.
Yeah.
I think also, as you do, is that like we have this cool equilibrium between that very real kind of what people refer to as the mundane world, but kind of our regular responsibilities as human beings, but this deep kind of operative connection to the imaginal realms, the spirit realms, whatever it is. So part of this dude's technique, and I've been trying it, this is why it's been kind of really been interesting for me, is it's just this, it's kind of like the secret type stuff, which I never read in full disclosure. I just kind of know what it is, like positive thinking, law of attraction shit. But his idea is that if you really desire something, and what I like about that is it makes you figure out what you want, which is like something I didn't do for a very long time. Just like ask myself, like, what do I really want? Like, do I want to be like famous? Do I want a lot of money? Do I want to like have a lot of sex? All these basic questions that people like probably don't ask themselves and just guide their lives. So it makes you ask this question, what do you really desire? And then before you're going to sleep or anytime you enter into kind of that hypnagogic state, is you imagine it in full sensory detail, as clearly and vividly as possible, as your own kind of from your own perspective, not like a movie scene that you'd be watching on a screen, but from within your own body. And then you load it with like essentially love, but let's just call it any positive emotion. And you do this repetitively and you kind of like weigh this off of what you really want. If you're asking for some bullshit, if you're asking for money, you might be asking for financial security or something like that. And if you start doing this, the theory is from the student Neville Goddard is shit will start changing in your world externally, quite literally. And furthermore, that this is something we're doing regardless of whether we're consciously aware of it. So by empirically testing this before, you go to sleep every night, you can then be like, all right, is this real or is this some kind of like hokey ass idea that I don't know what it is? And dude, since I've been doing it, this shit has been like mind-blowingly crazy. Like it reminds me of a psychedelic state, but one without kind of the frenzied, like overactive mind. There's like a sense of equilibrium because you start to enter into these vividly imagined states that then literally take place as you imagine them, which is very, very interesting because I think intuitively we sense this is going on, but to actually operatively use this in a way and then see it happen, to me is kind of mind-blowing. It's been blowing away.
Oh yeah, I mean it can literally blow your mind, which is why so many of these grimoires and various instruction manuals for this particular practice have these pretty severe warnings in the beginning. And, quite often the practice itself of magic, usually the advice is to learn some discipline first, so that when you kind of do start experiencing this reality that you're talking about, which has so many wonderful implications, depending on how tethered you are to the world or to your current understanding of the world, you won't blow a fuse, which does happen to some people, because the overwhelming realization that life as they knew it was some kind of dream, or that they're in a dream, or that you can lucid dream while you're awake, or however you want to put it. For some people, this is not at first it's really exciting, especially if you're in need of a thing, which is why there are some real pragmatic uses for these practices.
Right.
But then after you start getting what you want, now you have to start dealing with another problem, which is that the reality itself starts becoming very porous and permeable, and within that, you kind of have to deal with the fact that really you're probably still in a dream. So, like, if we were to go to that potentially like completely incorrect thing I said up front, so sorry, University of Bro Science here, which is that as the neocortex develops, these and a differentiation forms between the conscious and subconscious mind, or the kind of like all the stuff that what the mind was overlaying on top of reality starts getting pushed into the background. The question then would be, do you think we got it all in the background now? Do you think that what we're seeing in the foreground is actually real and the stuff in the background isn't? Oh, I'm afraid not. It could be it could be that this process is continuing. In other words, perhaps at some point, seeing a dragon, a fairy, a unicorn, a mythological being, an encounter with a burning bush, an encounter with some entity or spirit seemed as real as an encounter with a person does right now. And similarly, maybe because this thing that we're experiencing is more of a projection than a reality, then that means that we can start controlling the projection. And in that, there's some magic that can be done. But also, the sort of other side of that realization is, but you're still just playing make-believe. So that sounds, by the way, it sounds like I'm poo-pooing it.
No,
I'm not at all.
You're being responsible. So I would say my impression of you giving this is that you run a popular podcast that deals with consciousness and weird mystical things. I run a podcast that isn't as popular, and I get a lot of communications from people going through these experiences, very real experiences that I've had before, but to also temper that and say, hey, listen, you're still a human being if you're communicating to me right now. Make sure you're aware of these things. Don't let it consume your life to the detriment of your physical, emotional, psychological well-being. That temperance is critical. Like it has to be there. For me, why I say it's mind-blowing is I went through, my mind was literally blown in 2003 and 4. It happened. It fucking exploded. I got diagnosed as bipolar. I was on lithium for 3-4 years, eventually got off it with the help of a psychiatrist in my family. So I've literally lost my mind, been in this alternate reality, had no kind of interface with the world.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm also incredibly conscientious of the fact that that could happen again, theoretically, if we're looking at the clinical diagnosis. What I also think is important here that you mentioned or alluded to a little bit is having some type of ethical framework for if you're going to use this as an operative power, that yes, this may be a neutral principle that you could use for good or bad, but you probably want to use it for good, not just because we're saying so, but because there's some basic rules you can follow. For me, what's kind of been like a really stabilizing ethical framework, kind of recognizing or looking at this imaginal creating reality type idea, is the golden rule. which is like my favorite fucking thing right now, because embedded in the golden rule is that you have to know thyself. Like, you need to know what you wouldn't want done to you, or what you would like if someone did for you, if you did for them. So I think that is kind of this like torch I've been carrying around when I've been thinking about, first about what the fuck would this reality be like if we could make it as cool as possible? Like, what would we really like to fix, not selfishly, not egotistically, but like, what are the things we would like to see emerge in this world? And if you use the golden rule as kind of like your beacon, this shit gets pretty fun. Like, it does, in like a real way, and not a kind of a delusional fantasy way, but like you can actually doing some fun stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the golden rule kind of contains within it a way to expand the circumference of the identity to include not just you, but those around you. So, and not in a sense of like, oh, I want to. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful at every level. The literal interpretation, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's some kind of like existentialist. Jean-Paul Sartre said, anything you do, you give permission for the world to do. So it's a kind of way to start using everyone's innate inborn selfishness as a mechanism to extend the circumference of the self, so that you think, oh my God, yeah, I wouldn't want someone to rob from me or to steal from me. And if I am stealing from people, I'm literally giving permission for the whole world, at least as long as I imagine that people are of equal value, to steal from me. If I imagine that some people deserve to be stolen from, or there's a hierarchy of self, or any of those sad delusions that people have, then it's a different story. But if you're going to go from the premise of all are created equal, then from that place, there's a kind of equanimous attitude that you have to take on, which in the sense that you're dealing with the fact that whatever it is you're doing, whether it's some radical, violent, aggressive behavior or just some mild sloppiness, you are giving permission for the world to do that very thing to you. And so this, I think, kind of has some tie-in to the secret stuff, or the idea of creating a resonance with specific frequencies, and then by creating that resonance, you cause vibration to appear, and that vibration is the manifestation of the thing you desire. So, in other words, if I can sort of start vibrating at the frequency of compassion, real compassion, then I'm going to start experiencing that compassion directed towards me. Another way to put it would be, I'm going to look, when I look in the mirror, I'm going to see myself. So if the composition of myself is more than my physical body, which I think it must be, it's the sum total of all my desires, my intentions, etc., then I'm going to see that reflected back at me wherever I go. Whether I believe it or don't believe it, it's going to reflect back on me. And still, again, here at this place, you come to a general loneliness, which is that if you begin to realize that you are witnessing your projection, and a lot of magic is an experiment in reflectivity, then you do have to deal with the fact that you're in a house of mirrors. And this whole time that you thought you were surrounded by friends, enemies, family, teacher, lovers, you've just been looking at yourself. And now we get to what I think, in my deep and sometimes very incoherent contemplations of the first cause, I think if there were a moment where the entirety of the universe came to a point of sentience, then that moment would be a terrifying moment of the most profound loneliness that there could ever be. Because who do I talk to? What am I? I don't even know what I am. It's like a baby being born without a mother. And so there's this infinite, pure, energetic sentience just in the midst of itself. And what does it do? It starts screaming like a baby. And that screams the Big Bang. It explodes into time. And every single one of us is sort of a fragmental portion of that initial howl of deep loneliness, having to overcome the problem of being a sort of one, alone, completely alone. And that loneliness everybody feels, which we're all trying to satiate with various balms, potions, tinctures, gadgets, houses, cars, the money, the synthesizers, the love. All of it is actually a kind of like bandaging of this sort of initial sense of deep, profound, and absolute loneliness that the initial sentient force of the universe experienced prior to its nervous breakdown that we call creation.
I love that viewpoint because of how clearly you explained what I think is at the root of most people's existential dread, right? That there is at the end this kind of, oh my God, it's just me. This was all me. I totally get it. For me, this is the way I look at it. I think that energy, that source, whatever it was, rather than out of a scream of loneliness, it created itself. I think it started creating all these stories and narratives like we would if we wrote a book, or if like George R. R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones. He's like, you know what?
Yeah,
I
that's
love
cool.
these fucking stories so much. I love them so much. I wish they were real. How do I make them real? What can I do to make them real? And you go, the whatever this source is goes, you know what? I gotta die. I gotta die to go into this and forget that I am this source. Go into all of these little characters and narratives and stories, these leaves of the tree, and forget. And then what I'll do to remind myself that, oh, yeah, everything is great. There's all this loving energy source that created things, is at certain points along these narratives that I've created for each individual leaf on the tree, I'll remind them that I'm always there. I'm always in you. And what I am is literally that, the I am. So when we think of our imagination, when we think of anything, that's actually the operative power of God or source or energy, or, the clear light in Tibetan Buddhism. And this is something that the more I've kind of just contemplated it, what's weird, man, is like, I've told you this a lot of times, like I've had a very hard time meditating. Like I've tried every Eastern,
Yeah,
Western approach to get into like, how do I fucking meditate? And you know what ends up happening is I have all my friends telling me, my family, it's so great. I've done it. I witnessed the power of it. But what I end up doing now is I call it my imagination time. But what I fucking do is I go down, get quiet, figure out what I really want. I'm essentially doing one pointed, Vipassana. I'm focusing on the thing I want. As
sure.
soon as it wanders, I go right back to the thing I want. I notice all these stray thoughts. And then I go, holy shit, this is actually what I think is going on. And the reason I'm kind of so convinced or kind of evangelical about this in a certain way, no pun intended, is when I had this kind of big synchronicity, extended synchronicity experience, which was very crazy in a lot of ways, I kept thinking I'm Jesus. I keep going, I'm Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I'm Jesus Christ. I'm Jesus Christ. I'm Jewish. I had no knowledge of the New Testament. I didn't know
yeah,
anything
yeah,
about him, had no idea about any of this shit, ever, never read about it. And I kept
yeah,
going, I'm Jesus Christ. I'm Jesus Christ. I feel like Jesus Christ right now. And so what Goddard talks about is, he says, listen, the only thing I've ever heard him say, and you can get a vibe of someone when they're speaking, the only thing I've ever heard him say in the negative, meaning like this didn't happen, this is wrong, is he says, the secular or historical telling of the Bible, anyone who thinks that this is something that actually happened in real life just is confused. These are psychological states that one moves through and
mm,
experiences, and he relates them. There are all these different things. It's really, I find it fascinating, but the one he calls kind of that resurrection is this I am power. This is when people take psychedelics, when they get into lucid dreams, whatever, they experience it and they're like, holy shit, what is this? What is this? And the fact that you can, in regular, not drugged out, not anything, just before you're going to sleep, start kind of harnessing and getting in touch with this thing is fucking nuts. Like it's
yeah.
really been nuts.
It's one. I mean, I was just um, hanging out with my baby, and I was watching him take in the profound glory of a comforter, right? And like, just like, realizing like this is what's one of the things in your world, a massive, soft, white, malleable thing that can block the light, that can become a house, that can become a tent, that can cover you up, that is keeps you warm, and seeing like none of this mental stuff about it, but just a general just joy over the fact that there's a comforter and it's there. And so in that kind of like pre-overlay situation, the boy is like living in a paradise, prior to this, like, the beginning of the filtration process of reality, which is like, okay, I know what a comforter is. Who gives a fuck?
Right.
I know what this is. I know what that is. I know what that is. And I know what that is. I know what that is. But I need that. So what you're talking about, the magical path, tantric path, is like, one way to like pull it out of like our reality and just, do you play video games? Do you play
I
video games?
love fucking video. Are you kidding me? I love video
Okay.
games.
What's your favorite video game?
Final Fantasy.
Okay. So, with Final Fantasy, I used to be addicted to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, sure.
With these games, like, kind of part of the joy of the game is the attainment of this and that, and watching the character sort of level up and gain increasing levels of freedom to move about the game and do various things and go to different parts of the game. If suddenly, for World of Warcraft, you start as the highest level character and you just type in whatever the instrument or the implement is that you want, the game would immediately become the most boring, failed piece of shit game of all time, right? You would be bored. You would be so profoundly bored because there wouldn't be a space between you and this thing that you want, and the game itself is granting you these dopamine, serotonin rushes every time you invest a certain amount of time and achieve the thing that you wanted. So I think one of the things that happens with magic and tantra, and the reason it's called like compared to a lightning bolt or throwing gasoline on a fire, these sorts of things, is that it begins to shrink the amount of time in between that thing you can imagine and having that thing that you can imagine. And the better you get at it, inevitably, the more you begin to realize, not in some folksy shit you read on the back of a cereal box, which is money doesn't buy love, but literally from encounters with massive success, massive demonstrations of miracles, massive synchronicities, massive lifting of the veil, you suddenly begin to realize that in the same way that in World of Warcraft or I'm guessing Final Fantasy, I haven't gotten into them yet, you start off fighting these like little rabbits.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In the same way in Final Fantasy, you wouldn't want your character to go back and fight the little rabbits. It's no longer interesting to you. Similarly, you begin to realize it's all little rabbits. And in that case, your mind can sort of naturally free itself from the tethers of desire. It's one of the mechanisms, I think, of dealing with the pain of desire, because desire is a state of pain.
Yes.
When it hurts to want something, no matter what it is, no matter how good the thing is. If you take it, like, for example, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Right now, I want a Moog 1. It's an $8,000 synthesizer.
Right.
So since I heard about the Moog coming out, I've had, not a big sense of discomfort, but kind of the discomfort of having a little bit of sand in my underwear, which is the feeling of wanting the Moog 1. So my mind has postulated that should I get this particular synthesizer, the extinguishment of this particular desire is going to happen. Now, the actual what's going to happen with the synthesizer, which is I'm going to have access to these beautiful patches and these beautiful sounds, and I'll be able to perfect my ability to play piano because it's a polysynth and all that stuff. It's almost a secondary consideration, whereas the primary consideration is more of a kind of blind desire, right? So when as I've been being taught, the beginning, rather than get the Moog 1 and spend $8,000, it's more like, let me look at this desire.
Yes.
Like, what is it? What is the state itself? Not moralizing over whether desire is evil or good, or if it's an indication of a spiritual problem or spiritual success, but just a pure analytical breakdown of the state of desire itself.
Yes.
What is it? How does it feel? What other things have I desired and gotten? And did it work? Did the feeling come back? And so in this, I have found something of a loosening. I'm not saying I don't want that fucking Moog 1. I still want it. I've gotten in fights with musicians friend over it. I've embarrassed myself over it.
I love this.
But literally the potency of the desire state itself is less than it was, and I would prefer that. In other words, the fantasy is like that song, I want to be a millionaire. Maybe it's billionaire. I don't know what it is now. That song's gonna have to change with inflation. Whatever.
Trillionaire soon enough. Yeah.
Eventually your beat's gonna sound ridiculous. Like, really, you want 50 cents? You fucking asshole! Like, I'm desperate. But whatever the thing it is, really, what the person is looking for is a state of desirelessness. But people like Goddard and Mitch make a very good point, which I kind of love, which is that your desires are actually the creative outflow of the universe desiring to appear in the dream. So, as above, so below, if we have a imagination and we go into a dream state where we populate the dream state with a variety of entities that we have various interactions with, similarly, we are in the dream state of the divine, and the divine, through our desires, is attempting to have a kind of lucid dream by inviting us to perfect ourselves as we reach towards our desires. And so this is why magic and tantra and all these things are legitimate pathways towards a kind of peace, I think. But in my imaginings of it, the peace must come not from the power to manipulate phenomena according to our will, but through that manipulation, I think a kind of refinement of the self happens that transcends any kind of way that we have formed the universe. And to me, that is a priceless gift, and it's way better than a Moog One.
Here's what I would say to that, and I think that is, like, again, amazing how clearly you say that and relate to your desire, which everyone can do. I want a new MacBook Pro, right? I know exactly this thing is $3,600, the one I want. It's no one should be spending this much on a computer when I can get a, but they're so nice. Here's the way I look at it is it does make you examine that desire, especially when you get more acutely tuned to this idea of that your imagination or your unconscious is creating reality. So there's two ways to look at it, right? You can, what I've done for the most of my life is exactly that. Like, well, do I really need this thing? Every time I've ever wanted a thing, it morphs into some other desire. That hole is still there. It didn't satiate. But then I look back and I go, you know what? Sometimes I did get that thing and I fucking felt amazing. I felt super fulfilled. Yeah. It worked out exactly how I wanted to. Everything felt like it was in flow. You know, I see this a lot with gardening. Gardening is a good way to get in touch with this. When your vegetables and shit come up, you're like, oh my God, like this is amazing. So I look at it like, maybe you can imagine a scenario where you don't spend $8,000 on a Moog, but Moog is like, you know what? We just started sponsoring podcasts, which I know they're doing now. And what? I got something to tell you after this, my friend. It's funny you mentioned Moog. So I know they're doing that. Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. But anyway, imagine if you got this thing. Imagine if you got this thing and you examined the reason you wanted it was not to fill this existential hole of desires, but because you wanted to make beautiful fucking sounds that when you made them, it made you feel good. It made your kid feel good. It made your wife feel good. It made your listener, wherever venue or output you put it out, made people feel good. That's in line with the creative principle. And it also doesn't deny you something, which is, I think, not a bad kind of approach to this. You need to be discerning. You don't want to be wishy-washy. What I think you alluded to at the end there that I love too is that this is also kind of a bait and switch. Every physical thing, every scenario you manifest, you'll eventually realize that you didn't want that thing. You wanted to be unified with that sense of fulfillment and love and consciousness. And eventually you move towards that. And if, let's say that's 10% of your life, can you bump it up to 15? Can you bump it up to 20? Can you get to the point where you're essentially a Maharaji who's just like this loose veil of personhood who's just magically manifesting whatever people want? Because that's how imagination works. So this is what's kind of been very interesting to me is that the more I kind of believe in the thing, believe in this principle, I started asking out for the most rote, basic, greed level shit, of course. But what I actually got proof of within 24 hours was that this principle works. I started having people come out of the woodwork, tell me about synchronicities, really fucking weird ones. I started being able to have a conversation where someone's saying they want a Moog. And I say, hey, I just found out Moog is sponsoring podcasts. Like weird shit started happening that I never could have consciously devised, but that I've gotten as confirmation that this is an operative principle to at least be explored. And again, what I really like about it is that there's an empiricism to it. And this is, I've never really gotten super into magic stuff, magical practices. I have explored Tantra, but this is just one of those things that you do and you see if it works. That's better than someone saying, hey, this is how shit works. Take my word for it. That's like, no one wants to hear that this day and age. And to overlay this into kind of what I think is happening is, to me, we're seeing this principle of imaginal reality kind of cascade up in our actual consensus shared reality. I think Trump is doing this. I think his vision of him as president was more powerful than everyone who didn't think it was possible. That's why it happened.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we're seeing this kind of cascade up. And the more people who recognize this as a principle have kind of power in the best sense of the word to influence things for the good, bend the arc of justice towards the good a little bit. So it's a pretty fucking nutso thing. And yeah, man, get the moog, but don't pay for it. Why would you? That's not a good, that's too much money. But if they sent it to you and it gave them benefit, it gave you benefit, it gave your listeners and other people in your life benefit, that's a win-win-win. And that's not,
Well, that's true.
you know, it's not
That makes more
far-fetched.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about in the beginning of this beautiful articulation, which is so filled with love and sweetness and is great. Because, you know, it's great. You mentioned to me, what is truly the fuel that drives this. And you know, everyone, when they quote Crowley, they always say, he said, do what you do as thou wilt. Do as thou wilt, right? Shall be the whole of the law. But they don't even get to that part. They just say, do as thou will. And then they imagine that he was some kind of hedonist, which he was. But, you know, they don't understand what he meant by will. And they don't understand, they never mention the last part of it, which is do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. So they miss that last part of the puzzle there. And by missing that part of the puzzle, it's like having a vehicle and not putting gasoline in it, because that kind of sense of like, if I achieve this or that, for example, success itself, regardless of what your version of success may be, if you achieve success and you are like, have the intention that you just mentioned, which is it's going to help the world. It's not just in some ambiguous way you're going to help the world. You're going to help your family because you're going to have some more resources. You're going to help your friends because they might need money from you. Just a very basic situation like that. But also you're going to help people by demonstrating to them that you were able to reach this particular set of conditions that you wanted to have happen. And it can be very inspiring for people, and it can give people the oomph to do it. You know, I watched, Rogan's always tweeting this guy. I don't know who he is. I guess maybe his name's Goggins or so. I don't remember his name. Is that your guy? He used to be a Navy SEAL, but he just jogs. And someone, P.S., whoever's filming him gets zero credit, even though he's running at the equal pace with this Navy SEAL who's like saying very inspirational things, which is like, you can do this. Just go out and run. You can do this. This is how you do it. And I'm doing it. And I watch that, and it inspires me to get out on my bike, to ride, to get exercise, to get outside. So his success is contagious, and it upshifts my reality. So just the very act of him demonstrating his will, but then also sharing it with everyone, it creates a positive impact in the world. And I think if you could, this is why David Nichter, who I study meditation with, he's been teaching me just some basic, like, in what it means to have intention,
Yes.
What it means, the dedication of merit when you're sitting down to practice, even if it's a kind of floppy, weird, loose consideration, instead of thinking, oh, I'm sitting to meditate today because I want to achieve peace, or I want my fucking mind to shut the fuck up for a second, please, or at least to not be so disturbed by the turbulent mind. But also, I want to give this practice to the world, because by my own sort of calming, by de-armoring and becoming more gentle, I can only help the world. And so within that, I think, is the key operant term, which is selflessness.
Yes.
I'm doing this, and it can start with selfishness, paradoxically, which is why the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is saying, here are the people who seek me, the seeker after gold, which is very interesting, which isn't some pious shit. It's literally people who want to get rich, reach out to God, and guess what? They're granted the wish. But somewhere in the connectivity with the divine or the source of wealth itself, you begin to realize that it wasn't the wealth you really wanted anyway. But why not go for it? Don't shame yourself for your desires. Don't get all fucking neurotic and like, oh, I shouldn't want. I should be. Don't pretend to be some fucking renunciant, ascetic, brahmachari bullshit when you're not. You're going to be fucking miserable. And also, you're not going to trust yourself.
Yes.
And also, you're going to deny your own, like, where you are right now in this moment. I guess I'm talking myself up to get a book one.
Well, you fucking amazingly said again, dude. And you're talking to yourself, you're talking to me, you're talking to everyone when you say it, which is awesome. And I love that you brought up David. Right, we got the Tibetan Buddhist perspective from Chogyam, who is quite the character too, right? That whole lineage. And then you also mentioned the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic sense. So one of the things that's weird about the way Goddard conceives this, he goes Old Testament, New Testament, straight Abrahamic, like consciousness states. He did not have much knowledge, worldly knowledge of these other things. So that was the immediate thing I weighed this against. Because, I'm into this shit. I don't discard it. I don't say, oh, I'm not into it anymore. It doesn't mesh with my thing. There have been times I've wanted to do that and couldn't do it. So the way I view it is, whether it's from a shamanic culture in South America, whether it's from the Vedic traditions, whether it's from Buddhism, whether it's from, New Age ritual magic practices, or Western, Christian mysticism, what they're all referring to, and I've read the Bhagavad Gita, I've read the Dhammapada, I think the same fucking thing. You can call it I am. It's that thing in our head. And this thing is there always. Every good mystic, every person you should be paying attention to says the first thing they say is, don't take my fucking word for it. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Experience what I am saying yourself. And I think what we've seen through what we've imagined in our historical kind of lineage is that these people have come in between the priesthood classes, probably not even nefariously, but to mediate this connection that we all inherently have right to source. We can do this whenever we want. We don't need to go to church to do this. You can if you want, if it gets you more in the mood, but this is always within you. To me, that lines up with every fucking mystic, every culture, every religion. And I think it's amazing that when you start kind of cross-comparatively looking at these things, you get this really interesting, like, holy shit. Again, same thing. Like what I was tuned into, I had never read him, but where Goddard pulls a lot of this from is William Blake. And holy shit, I just started reading William Blake. And now I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't have understood this if I would have read it at any other time, because what he is talking about, this poetic reality, is imagination. He's talking about God. He's talking about this voice that we actually control. So when we listen to it, we think, oh, well, that's just Noah. That's just Duncan. That's just Sarah, whoever it is. No, like, go start trying to shape your reality. Here's the thing with the meditation and these desires, and I don't think this invalidates any Buddhist approach, any other tradition, is rather than trying to be aware of just your thoughts, see if you can have the imaginal intention to replace them with better thoughts, right? Because then if the thoughts are just going to come, I've never been able to shut them off pretty much ever my entire life. No. I've never been able to do it. But I will tell you, in this 10 days, since I've really kind of grokked this in my full being, dude, I mean, my Alexis will testify to it. I've been less stressed, independent of external circumstances, bank account, impending birth, all of these things. There's been this
so stressful,
dude. Yeah, it is, right? It's a crazy fucking period. But what I've noticed is if you are operating that this is a real principle and that imagination creates reality, if you get in tune and you know you're really doing this thing, you can chill the fuck out a little bit, which is what everyone wants money for anyway, just to be clear. They want it so they don't have that constant stress and pressure and blah, blah, blah. It sucks. It sucks up your whole fucking energy and you can't think about anything else. So if you can move into these states, even if they haven't actually physically happened, but believe they happen, and then they start happening, again, I feel like it's up to you. You could level up to 99 in World of Warcraft, or 120, whatever it is these days, but then you could realize, guess what? there's 1,000 levels now. I didn't level up. I just got to, as long as we're here, there's infinite possibilities. So it's just kind of been blowing my mind. And I knew if anyone would appreciate it, it would be you, because I know this is shit you think about.
Oh, not just think about it. I've gotten myself in quite some trouble manifesting things
Yes.
prior to for me, like, and I compare too many things to modular synthesizers, but I think you'll appreciate it. To me, like, I got into modular synthesis prior to knowing music. So I went the wrong direction, kind of, but by going that direction, I now know more about music than I ever thought I would in this incarnation, and it's been a real joy, right? So similarly with manifesting, it's like kind of not what you would call a beginner's, what I would consider to be a beginner's game, so to speak. In other words, like, Trump says, before you can reject yourself, know yourself. And so I think, like, something about, like, really knowing who you are and knowing what's important, and truly knowing what you want, not what someone else told you to want, not what an earlier version of yourself thought you wanted, but you really don't anymore. Really coming to, like, a real sense of, like, what is of value in my life. And to me, like, a family bath, sitting with my wife in the bathtub with the baby, to realize that I am experiencing a state of bliss that exceeds experiences I've had on the greatest psychedelic at Burning Man. And there's nothing here except a bath, a baby, a wife, and me, a family, a home. To me, that really has shown a light on simplicity, or something like, oh, this is good. Not good not in an ethical, moral way, but good in, this is scratching the itch.
Yes.
This is giving me, there was a time in my life where the concept of waking up at early in the morning when the sun's coming up was like a hell fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, giving my baby a bottle as the sun's coming up when I've had maybe 5 hours of sleep, and experiencing not resentment or anger, but just pure joy, and seeing his sort of samadhi just from the bottle. These are transcendent states for me, meaning, so in some ways, I think a lot of us, we've been had. You drive down the street, and this is something Trumpa talks about, and you look up, and it's billboard after billboard after billboard telling you what you need, what you should, what's going to make you better, what you might need and don't even know you need it. How many times are you on your fucking phone looking, and it's like a picture of someone's foot, and it says 6 signs of lung cancer.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck? That kind of looks like my foot. Oh fuck. And then you're constantly being sort of like, it's almost like we're being bull baited into these various, like, places to buy shit. And okay, fine, I'm not saying, like, therefore capitalism's evil or those people are sorcerers or whatever it may be. I'm just saying, first, and this is not, I don't think, out of line when it comes to Elise Crowley, who really did advise a preliminary meditation practice of some sort, yoga, discipline, learning how to truly, like, gain control of the wild horses that are pulling the chariot of your life. And then through that discipline, you will find, I think, not only a more effective route to manifestation, but also the things you manifest will actually be things that you want.
Yes.
And desire. And you know what I mean? So then in that case, you don't accidentally become the sorcerer's apprentice, with all the fucking brooms. And dancing around, causing all kinds of problems in the workshop, which, by the way, all that being said, some of my favorite moments have been when the brooms and buckets start dancing.
There
and you're
you
like,
go.
oh, well, holy fucking shit. Oh, I made a real mess here. But, now I'm in my old age and having a real desire for more of a low, a smooth sailing kind of life, I've become less fascinated by the dancing buckets and more interested in like, how do I calm, how do I allow myself space to have a crazy, never-ending, neurotic mind and simultaneously be the stable father figure and husband that my wife and my child deserve in their lives. And because that to me is like really, really the most important thing. And also, the people I work with too, that too, of course. And so that, and I could say that now in a way that isn't like, I wish I were like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I really want to have a stable, peaceful home so that my child can have a really
course.
wonderful childhood.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you look at it, you've been imagining the thing that would help you along this path and kind of push you there. I mean, that to me is where this.
One.
Huh? What?
A Moog One. It's the only way to achieve this peace. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean,
I must have it.
it really though it's this interesting thing where I think whatever we want, we do end up getting. I think what you're referring to more than anything is know what it is and get in touch with that, because otherwise it's all brooms and dancing and crazy Fantasia stuff. And most of the time, what would be terrible about that if you're constantly Mickey and you don't know what the fuck is going on and you have to put out this never ending waterfall of it's draining your whole thing. That's right. That's a metaphor for your unconscious taking over. So if you could get in your boat, paddle on that water, go to a new kind of interesting scene where other things are going on. That's kind of what we want to do with this operative principle here. And it all starts with, dude, I'll tell you, man, I had a kid already. I had been in the world of, making money and all these things. Not until 2 weeks ago did I ever really ask myself the question, what do you want? What do you really want? Luckily, because of circumstance, skill, talent, whatever it is, imagination, good karma, whatever you want to call it, have weaved an amazing life for myself in the meantime. But when I started asking that question, it was incredible to not only see how this works for myself, but how other people are either consciously or unconsciously using this principle. And one thing I really like, I want to add this thing that I felt that really helps with trauma a lot, is one of Goddard's principles is that you can go, time isn't real, right? Let's just get my metaphysical conception out of there. It doesn't exist. We experience it as existing. I'm not saying we don't have bills that aren't due on the first and the last, whatever it is. I'm saying that we've all had those moments where, Mitch calls them time collapses, where it's like, holy shit, how is this all lining up exactly as it did 30 years ago today? It's all these weird synchronicities. Anyway, Goddard's principle is that you can go back at any point that happened to you, something painful, traumatic, scary, really that you would like to change, vividly use this tool, imagine the scenario again from within your body, and imagine it as you'd like it to be. I'm telling you, the only example I can give of this that I think is more useful than, changing some time travel type thing is there was something that happened in me and Alexis's relationship that caused a lot of trauma, a lot of problems for us. And luckily we overcame it. This is a topic that if it came up would be, holy shit, things are getting weird, uncomfortable, and everything is comfortable for us almost all of the time. So I did this one day, went back, changed the situation how I would have liked to act it, how I knew was the right approach. That night, it organically came up from her, not me. We had the best conversation we had ever held. Like genuine healing took place. So if that principle again is true, that means we have the ability to go back and fix those things that are fucking us up, which we know are kind of fucking us up, and then clear that shit out, right? Do the Tibetan lucid dream and clear your karma out thing, clear that up, and then get back to a blank slate and be like, all right, now what the fuck are we going to do here? So I don't have to operate from these places of like fear and doubt and scared and all this shit. It's kind of crazy stuff that I just think it's ironic that you tipped me off to Mitch, who tipped me off to Goddard, so I get to come back and tell you about this shit, because this thing is fucking powerful stuff, man.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, I mean, it is very powerful, and I want to add, now that I've done my fucking Buddhist thing, I'll add to some non-Buddhist, just pure magical speculation stuff in my contemplation of these things, specifically like. So it's kind of like here's a great question to ask. What can I not buy? Like what can I buy? Because the moment you kind of get in touch with whatever that may be, then you find this really interesting. Now you have a wall, right?
Mhm.
Because like there's a sort of, they say there's a wall around the Garden of Eden, mythologically, of course. And so it's interesting. There's so many people in the world who can use money to like get over boundaries, political boundaries, neighborhood boundaries, vehicular boundaries, geospatial boundaries. But you can't use money, at least right now, to say become a master pianist. You can't do that. You can't use money to become disciplined, for example. It doesn't matter if you have $50 trillion and you give it all to somebody, you're still going to be smoking cigarettes if you can't stop smoking cigarettes. You're still going to be, and similarly, like, you can't use money to get yourself into like really good shape. You can use money to get a trainer, you can use money to get books, you can use money to get a therapist, blah, 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 but you still got to fucking do the thing. And so that means that what we have is these bubbles, these sort of like cloaked areas of reality that are surrounded by membranes that are not permeable by money, power, or status, but that are only permeable through a consistent practice of some kind or another, whether the practice is meditation, working out, some form of magic, whatever you want to call it. There is a wall between you and the place where you have read that book. There's a wall between you and the place where you can speak Italian. There's a wall between, et cetera, on and on and on. So to me, in my thinking of these things, I like to think about it in terms of the different landscapes humans have experienced with the evolution of the technology. So we go from being walking to riding a horse to riding a train to flying in planes to going into space, right? And with each of these subsequent leaps forward, literally our reality has completely transformed.
Right.
Now we know what the ground looks like from further up in the sky than any human before us ever went who wasn't on a mountain. Now we know what the earth looks like from space and have yet again completely transformed reality itself to the point where we might have as well have entered into another part of the dream or another part of the multiverse, so to speak.
Yes.
To me, what all of this stuff I think may be is the first phases of a new kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, form of transit. And so in the same way that prior to being able to hop on a horse, you need to have an understanding of what it is to walk, what kind of terrain you're on, and the ability to see a horse. And then similarly, if you want to like fly, you're going to need a vehicle to fly in. And what I'm saying is, it may be that in the way that we've been having this interesting relationship to the earth and the way we travel on it or above it, we also have an interesting relationship with the subjective gravity well of our own identity. And that through these practices, not only are we achieving our desires, but we're literally leaping from one universe to the next,
Yes.
the next, meaning that with every single one of these rituals that you successfully operate or conduct, rather, you are not just bringing something to you, but you're literally teleporting,
Yes.
time jumping, time leaping into a completely new dimension, meaning
Yes.
that you're going to start seeing things in onion skin layers of subtle difference, but potentially ultimately you could open your eyes and be in like the kingdom of Shambhala or some
Boom.
completely alternate dimension.
Okay, so let me tell you something that you just said there. I'm glad you eventually hit on the exact word that I used when I was doing it. And again, this was a period of, like when I say 2003 and 4, very crazy permeability. Everything was influencing in. I was keeping a crazy journal. Numbers were popping up everywhere. Just crazy amount of things. My friends can relate some of the things I was talking about, one of which was unconditional love, not related to what I'm about to say. So one of the most poignant experiences I could remember, what happened often is I felt like I was going through dimensions. I kept saying to my friends, I can switch into different realities. I can move into different dimensions. And I think what you described not only works as a real world metaphor, but also, again, describes how did all of those things come into being? We'll leave out horses, but we can say that came from imagination. Someone imagined there should be something better than a horse, so they created the car and the train. Someone imagined that we could fly, so they imagined this thing. How did we even discover that time is relative? Einstein literally imagined himself on a bolt of light and was like, oh, this is how things work. So we have the operative principle there. And we also have this, what you're referring to, it's magical, speculative, you call it. I think this is really what's happening. I think we're co-doing this too. I don't want to make it sound like this is just this one individual trip that we all take. We are collectively dreaming these realities. We also have the ability, as I see it, to influence other people for better or worse, whatever that comes with. If I imagine you getting that Moog, and lots of people imagine you truly the way I'm describing it, Goddard says that shit's going to happen. It says without a doubt. So if you can start using that principle and start spreading it out into the world at large, shit gets very weird. And I think that is exactly what you're describing, this moving through dimensions and moving through these realities with this operative power of realizing that's what you're doing and just choosing and selecting Shambhala, right? Listen, do I think Shambhala by us imagining is going to happen tomorrow and we're going to wake up and world peace is going to be in order and everyone's enlightened? No, it's too big of a leap for me to really believe that right now. But can I imagine that when our kids have grandkids, that just at the last second we averted ecological disaster, just at the last second something changed and we got the thing that makes things better? Not meaning we don't have to put in the actual work in this reality to do that, but do I think that's a possibility? Fuck yeah. I wouldn't be having kids if I didn't, because it would be just like inviting them into what looks like a hellscape, right? I mean,
yeah, like give birth into a blender if you don't believe that, friend. Just give birth into like a cave filled with wolves if you don't believe that. If you believe that we're truly about to experience the end of time. But, cynicism, of course, I think is one of the symptoms you've been cursed by a dark sorcerer. And that the first thing you have to do is alleviate that curse and like detoxify from fashionable attitudes that promote a kind of cynical attitude towards reality and the subsequent pessimism and ultimately a kind of aggressive attitude veiled as some sort of, I don't know, like hard truth or hard reality or hard sense of this is the way things are. And, man, again, it's like, well, before we got to the plane, we had to get on the horse. And I will tell you this, I know for sure that the first person who looked at a horse is like, I'm going to ride that fucking thing. His friends were like, you're going to die. Don't you remember what happened to Carl? You'll die. That thing will fucking kill you if you ride it, or you'll be cursed, or no one rides horses because it's forbidden by Lenore or Elder or whatever the fuck it is, right? All these stories about why you don't get on a horse. And somebody's like, no, I don't give a fuck. I'm getting on that horse. And they did it. And then they rode into the village for the first time on a fucking horse. Like, look, I guess you were wrong. I guess Carl was a pussy. Whatever it was, right? And then history was made at that moment. And now we're riding around on horses and blah, 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 blah. So first the horse. Now, in this case, especially when it comes to climate change and all this stuff, the horse, what I'm realizing the horse is this why I got this fucking goddamn thing. I don't want this. I like plastic. I want to go to the thing. I like I want to drink sparkling water. I don't want flat water. I like the bubba.
You like bubbly blubblies.
Yeah, bubbles. But you know what? I don't like fucking animals dying because they got fucking plastic jammed in their throats. Cute animals dying for that. But if I can't stop using plastic bottles, then I am giving permission to the entire planet to use plastic bottles, and we are truly in the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So, and that is because personally, whatever the fucking thing is you're doing that science has shown is fucking up the planet, whether it's your addiction to beef, whether you're using plastic bottles wherever you fucking go, whether you don't recycle, whatever the fucking thing it is, when you have a car when you don't need one, on and on and on and on. If you truly have a wish for the planet to be better, good news, bad news. Good news, you don't have to stress over other people. Bad news, if you can't fucking stop it, Nobody's going to stop
There you
it.
go.
And we're doomed. And based on the thing we're talking about here, my friend, which is perhaps there is the ability to travel through the onion skin layers of reality and eventually emerge into some utopian place, theoretically and definitely theoretically, if you stopped using plastic, if you stopped eating so much meat, if you stopped driving so much, or at least driving in a car that doesn't use renewable energy, whatever the fucking thing is, then and truly stopped it, you would literally travel into a dimension that was a little better than the one you were in when
That's
you were
right.
using plastic. And you might expect to see synchronicities based around the practice, which I think one of the signs that you've conducted a successful ritual is the appearance of some synchronicity. In the same way that, how do you know you started a fire? Well, because there's smoke in the fire. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these are the experiments. It doesn't have to be a ritual chamber with Enochian writing and the robes and the thing. You can just start by being like, let's see what happens if I don't fucking use plastic bottles for a month or drink booze for a month or eat beef for a month. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, why are these coincidences happening? What the fuck is this? Well, guess what? In the same way, the acceleration of riding on a horse must have been initially a magical feeling. And in the same way, the fucking insane sense of looking out of a train at the blurred trees because you're moving faster than you ever moved, or the overview effect that astronauts feel when they see the, what pale blue dot or whatever Sagan calls it. Similarly, I think the exhilaration and the sort of attached epiphanies that happen when we make profound changes for the better in our own lives are a feeling of a new type of acceleration, where we are feeling the rush of traveling not from the earth, on the earth fast or up in the air, but literally the sense of exhilaration that comes from stepping from one realm into a completely different realm.
Yes.
And that feeling manifests as the awe that comes from coincidences that just couldn't have happened.
Right.
How could that be? What we call miracles. Miracles are the wind in your face. Like when the dog sticks his face out the window, it's like, ah! You know what I mean? It's similar, except only in this case, you're not in a car traveling down the highway and you're not a dog. You're a magician traveling through the dimensions. And the wind that you're feeling is the miraculous, gradual, ever accelerating realization that you're an eternal being with infinite power, I guess.
It's fucking amazing, dude. I mean, you are saying the things that could only make my heart sing in a specific way, dude. Like, this is just, it's perfect. And I really do think this is something that is entering our reality, whether we imagine it or not. I feel enough people sense this thing. I don't know about you. I have seen a keener interest from people in things like astrology and dreaming and these kind of more ancient esoteric things. And not just because they're on our Instagram feeds and people are sponsoring posts and trying to get us to go their fucking things, but because I think this unconscious layer, what Jung would call the collective unconscious, right, is starting to kind of cross over a little bit. And that operative power of what makes the unconscious create our reality, again, I think if we can imagine that future where maybe, like, I don't know what it's like you free with the water bottle, but I used to smoke cigarettes. And until I knew I was done smoking cigarettes, I could have tried hundreds of thousands of times. I never would have stopped. But that second I knew it was right, I stopped doing it. But if I could imagine myself now not eating as much meat because I know it's not bad for the planet, imagine myself not doing it. See if that starts to seep in. And rather, because what I found, I was vegan for 2.5 years and I was a militant vegan. I was an asshole. People fucking hated me, and they should have hated me because I was a piece of shit. I was just like the worst type of vegan, enforcing my agenda on people.
Yeah.
And guess what? As soon as I went on my honeymoon on Turks and Caicos and there was only beef, I'm fucking eating a hamburger. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a fucking asshole. So I realized that until you can get to that point where the thing that's supposed to happen happens and you're ready for it to happen, I go with the imagination. Let me give that little nudge so I can get to that point a little bit easier so we can move into those realities where, like, yeah, man, if we all got this, how hard is it to not get plastic bottles? Not that fucking hard. It's actually a pretty easy thing to do.
It isn't hard. But like, and the aside from all that stuff, it's like another way to put it would be, listen, if you and I are the right brothers and we are going to try to fly a plane, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. But first, do you mind if I load the plane with my bags? I want to like load it up with like 200 pounds of shit. You're going to be like, no, man, I don't think that's going to help us fly. And so similarly, like if you look back at pretty much all the world religions, there is some general kind of principle of purification is what they call it, and you hear that in the wrong way, it sounds really oppressive, and it can be. Don't fuck, don't eat meat, don't smoke, don't drink, shut up. I'm not going to do that, you oppressive fuck. But because the reason behind it isn't so that you can literally travel into an alternate reality, but because you want to like succumb to the oppressive patriarchal power of some priest class telling you how to live, which is really not very appealing to me or anyone in their right fucking mind. But if someone were to come to you and say, hey, listen, here's the thing. I know this sounds absolutely insane, but every single habit you have that is hurting you is actually hurting the entire universe because you're part of the universe, as above, so below. And the more you put those habits aside, even temporarily, the more, in the same way you cut the fucking bricks or whatever, the bags from a hot air balloon, you're going to start levitating. Not literally, unfortunately, but in a way 1,000,000 times better than levitation, which is that you are going to start moving into states of reality that aren't just imaginary. People are going to come up to you that have been waiting for you to get there, so to speak. And they're going to give you stuff and tell you stuff, and you're going to be part of something that's happening, not just here, but all over the entire universe. But first, unfortunately, because we all want to drink the bubbles and eat the meat and do the thing, because it's awesome, dude. I'm telling you, I get it. But first, we don't know why. You got to fucking put these things down because you can't get through the membrane with them. In the same way that certain types of nutrients can't get into a cell because it's like, fuck you. It's a permeable membrane. Stuff can come in, stuff can go out, but certain shit can't go in. Unfortunately, in this situation, this membrane that we're talking about here, which is cloaking an entire paradise reality, it seems like there's only a few ways through. And like usually that involves some kind of purification. And within that, I think I can find a fuckload more passion for discipline than if someone's just like, do as I tell you. In other words, if a spaceship landed and and a door opened and you're looking in and you're like, my God, it looks cool in there. And they're like, hey, listen, want to fly instantaneously, not just through the universe, but through parallel dimensions? All you got to do is not smoke for a month and we're going to let you in. Are you going to keep smoking? No. Even though there will be smokers who are like, fuck you, Eileen. You can suck my dick. I like the dimension where I can smoke, motherfucking nerds. But, most people are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to put it aside. And that to me is like, when I'm saying it, it sounds like I'm like making up a fairy tale. Do the experiment. See what your dimension looks like in a month of a steady practice of this or that, jogging. Yes. I've even heard someone was telling me in a movie, somebody was saying every morning just take water, put it in a cup, and dump it in the toilet. In other words, a completely absurd, repetitive task.
Yes.
See what kind of fucking universe you're in. Crowley, I think, would say things like, just, you know what, for a month, don't let your left hand leave your side. Your left hand should always be at your side. You're just not going to use your arm for a month. Whatever it is, just try it and see what happens. Why the fuck is it that with any act of consistent discipline, there is an almost instantaneous surge of epiphanies, synchronicities, magical moments, and some kind of like a manifestation that seems to go outside of your normal, of your idea of how reality works. So, but the problem is, it's like you still have to do the thing to get on the spaceship. Otherwise, they're kidnapping you. And we all know what happens when aliens kidnap you.
It's very much like that. Yeah, you're going to get probed. Yeah, you're going to get probed. Two things come to mind when you're talking about this related to discipline and kind of specifically, we're talking about meat and ecological things. So Goddard had a very kind of counterintuitive approach to this. He specifically said, doesn't matter. Vegetarians will think that it's about meat. Now, granted, he did not live with the awareness of an industrial agricultural system that's literally destroying the planet. So there wasn't that awareness. But his greater point was this, I think, which is all of these acts of purification, they're nice. They can be helpful. They can be good. But ultimately, what needs to happen with you as the individual is this samadhi moment of recognizing I am that I am. That I am God. This thing is me. This is the only thing. When you're talking about these, he talks about this, these permeous kind of these things that you can kind of bump up against, but if you don't drop the thing, you can't get through them. What he refers to as dropping the thing is this cloak, what he would call the crucifixion, which is Jesus, our consciousness of God, being nailed to this human form, meaning that we can't, until we drop that form and have that experience, go through this thing. He also talks about weird shit like, people die all the time. He's like, I've spoken to people who have died. They're not dead, but what happens when they die is they wake up just as a younger version of themselves and have to keep doing this thing. Kind of like Nietzsche thought a little bit, which is to say that it's not this eternal kind of hellscape that you're going to run over and over, but that until you have this experience of waking up to the consciousness, it doesn't matter. Now, what I will say how that relates to the actual practical, yeah, you should probably stop eating as much meat if you like animals and our planet. That's just like a good, rational, logical thing to do. Is if that's your desire, imagine that happening, then all of these weird things will shift and slide into your life to make it actually achievable for you to do, rather than you consciously forcing yourself to do anything. I've just found every single time, whether I want money, whether I want love, whether I want food, whatever it is, if I willfully pursue it, just kind of blindly with no conscious awareness, it's a fucking nightmare. It's just like I'm bumping up against these walls constantly, even if I have the intention. If I'm not in this state of like, this thing is going to happen, I know this is what I want, it's really my thing, I don't want to smoke anymore. If that was truly my intention, not just as a felt thing, but I go through this experience of imagining what it would look like, what I'd tell my friends, what it would feel like. When you do that, then the circumstances rearrange themselves. So you're like, you know what? It's no big deal that I have to drink out of this bottle now. I don't have to intend myself to do it. I've done it. I'm there. It's already happened. And then the circumstances slot into place. That's kind of been the turnaround for me, because I've done this same dance with purification so many times, whether it's desires, whether it's ecology. And whenever I force myself to do it and I know that I'm not ready for it, it's only temporary. Same thing I'd say with meditation. It just doesn't hold. And so this is why I've just kind of been approaching everything from this idea that I am, that experience, that voice, not just our voice, but that I am, that imaginal voice is the creator of reality. You get it base level there. I feel like this is kind of a weird place I'm in. I've always believed you've had to struggle. You need to polish that rock until it becomes a diamond. You need to do these practices. But if you even get into the deep Dzogchen practices of Tibetan Buddhism, what are they doing, man? I don't know if you've gotten there with David yet. They're making you visualize these fucking petals and grooves and letters and all of these things. It's intense imaginal creations. And
damn right it is.
So the thing to me is that I'm playing with this idea recently that it doesn't have to be hard. This isn't to say you don't need discipline. I think you do. This is discipline. Committing to a practice of imagining reality is fucking, you need a shitload of discipline, because what it also implies, what we've kind of alluded to here, is also that everything is now your responsibility. You no longer can blame anyone for anything, because you are now the narrator and creator of your reality. So I don't know. I've just been playing around with this idea that maybe, let's see, not that I'm going to alleviate all suffering. I think the Buddhists are right. This world is suffering, right? Jesus crucified to this world, this consciousness of mortal man is suffering. But can we make it better? Can we make it less suffering, right?
Everybody forgets that, people like David talks about it.
Right.
The first two noble truths of Buddhism, and no one wants to talk about the last two. The first is, here's suffering, the truth of suffering. The last is, here's how you stop suffering.
Yes.
We're more familiar with suffering. Now, speaking of suffering, not really though. I got to get back to work.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. Oh shit, I didn't even realize how long this went.
Well, I know I did, but it was such a exhilarating conversation, such an inspiring conversation, that I wanted to continue it, because again, you're doing this magical work. It's contagious. It's you're carbonated right now. I love carbonated water even more than that. Carbonated humans, and so it's like very enlivening to me, and so I appreciate it so much. And I'm gonna try to do a little Moog manifestation.
Yeah, let's see if we can help that along, dude. Thank you for your time. Get back to what you need to do. This has been awesome.
Thank you, man.
Peace,
come on,
dude.
Mark, please.
I will. Would love to. Peace.
Okay, great. Peace.
Thanks for listening to that episode. Go check out Duncan out. Go check out Duncan out. That doesn't make sense. Go check out Duncan at his website, duncantrussell.com, his podcast, Duncan Trussell Family Hour. He does so many other cool things. You know where to find him. Go find him. There'll be links and such. Big thanks to Four Sigmatic and Ned for sponsoring this episode. And I will see you next week.